Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today's topic is the skin and its appendages. We have studied the skin, that is epidermis and dermis, yesterday, and today I will talk about the accessories of the skin. The accessories of the skin, and the skin is known as the integumentary system. And the accessories of the skin are the hair follicles and hair. There are sweat glands, there are sebaceous glands, and the nail. And if we talk about the sebaceous glands are the glands which are holocrine type of glands. These are simple alveolar branched. As regards the morphology, these are simple alveolar branched glands of holocrine variety. I have told you when we were studying the classification of the glands previously in our lectures, the holocrine glands, these are the glands which secrete their secretion along with the whole of the cell. The whole of the cell disintegrates into the secretion, and the sebaceous glands is one of the examples of the holocrine glands. Sebaceous glands are spherical or ovoid structures enclosed in a thin connective tissue capsule. They lie in the dermis and their ducts open into the necks of the hair follicles usually, but there are certain exceptions. For example, in the glans penis, the lips, the labia minora, and the tarsal plates, the sebaceous glands are not associated with the hair follicles, and they open directly upon the free surface of the skin. Sebaceous glands are completely absent in the palms and the soles. So the thick skin is devoid of the sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are regarded as simple branched alveolar glands of the holocrine variety. Usually several alveoli, that is acini, open into the short wide duct. The alveoli are filled completely with a stratified epithelium. This is understandable that when we talk about the holocrine variety of gland in which the cells are being disintegrated, the whole of the cell laden with the secretory material, it is poured into the duct. So there will be the death of the cell, and there must be some cells which are replacing the cells which are being shed. So that's the reason the nature has provided in the lining of the alveoli of the sebaceous glands there is stratified squamous epithelium, and the first layer, that is consisting of that is basal layer, the stratum basale, also known as the stratum germinativum, gives rise to the germination, and there is cell division going on there. So you can see these are the sebaceous glands, and sebaceous glands are always related with the hair follicle. You will find that the ducts of the sebaceous glands are opening into the hair follicle. Hair follicle is a tubular sheath which encloses the root of the hair, and it is made up of an epidermal element, and there is a dermal element. I'll talk about it later on. Let's finish with the sebaceous glands. The sebaceous glands are most commonly present in the males and females, and at the time of puberty they are under the influence of the sex hormones, that is testosterone in the male and the ovarian androgens in the female. So at the time of puberty there is a heightened activity of the sebaceous glands, and the oily secretion which is being produced in the which is known as the sebum, and is produced in the sebaceous gland. It is this oily secretion is poured into the hair follicle, and as I have said that the alveoli are filled completely with the stratified epithelium. The most peripheral basal cells of the acini are low-cuboidal in shape and rest on a delicate basal lamina. Cytoplasm of these cells is rich in smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Towards the center of the acinus, the cells become polyhedral in shape and attain a large size, and their cytoplasm gradually accumulates more and more fat droplets. Nuclei of these cells become pycnotic and then disappear, as it happens in the stratum granulosum of the epidermis. Finally, all of the centrally located cells break down into a fatty mass and cellular debris. This oily material is known as the sebum, and it passed through the duct of the gland into the hair and thence upon the skin surface. Secretion of the sebaceous glands is under the control of androgens both in the male and female. In males, the controlling hormone is testosterone, while in the females it is a combination of ovarian and adrenal androgens. The significance of the secretion of the sebaceous glands with regard to maintenance of the health of the skin is unknown. But at the time of puberty, there is an increase in androgen production both in male and females. This is sometimes associated with the heightened activity of the sebaceous glands, and the excessively accumulated sebum in the glands becomes invaded by bacteria and gives rise to the condition which is known as the acne vulgaris. This is a skin disease. This will be studied in dermatology, and acne vulgaris is because of the heightened activity of the sebaceous glands, and usually seen more commonly in the females and less commonly in the males. The sweat glands. Sweat glands are simple tubular glands of the merocrine variety. I have told you that the merocrine variety of the glands are the glands in which merely the secretion, that is the secretory element, that is the granules which are present in, which are being produced in the cytoplasm, they are secreted out without any cellular component. And all the glands in the body are usually, these are the merocrine glands, and that's true for the sweat glands also. The sweat glands are the merocrine glands. They are simple tubular coiled, a very long coiled gland, which the coil of this, the lower portion, enters into the hypodermis. They are distributed throughout the skin except upon the margins of the lips, glans, penis and eardrum. They are especially abundant in the palms and soles. The terminal secretory portion of a sweat gland is coiled and lies deeply in the dermis, commonly extending into the subcutaneous tissue. The duct of the gland towards the secretory portion of a sweat gland is lined by a simple cuboidal or low columnar epithelium surrounded by a basement membrane. By traditional histological staining methods, two varieties of cells can be distinguished in the epithelium, the dark cells and the clear cells. As the name indicates, the dark cells are so named because they stain darkly in the routine histological sections prepared for light microscopy. The light microscope shows that these cells contain a prominent Golgi body. There are long mitochondria, many cisternae of rough endoplasmic reticulum, and abundant free ribosomes. Their apical cytoplasm contains dense secretory granules. These cells produce a rather viscous secretion, which consists mainly of glycoproteins, while the clear cells, as the name indicates, they stain very lightly because these cells do not contain secretory granules. Under the electron microscope, you will see that there is a rough endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes, which are very scarce in the cytoplasm, so it is lightly stained. However, clear cells shows infoldings of the basal plasma lemma, which is a characteristic feature of those cells which are engaged in transepithelial fluid and electrolyte transport. So these cells secrete a watery product rich in sodium, potassium and chloride. The secretion of the clear cells is released into the intercellular canaliculi, which are present between them and neighboring cells. A layer of myoepithelial cells is always present between the bases of the secretory cells and the surrounding basement membrane. The duct of the sweat gland is of smaller diameter than the secretory portion. It is lined by stratified cuboidal epithelium consisting of a double layer of darkly staining cells. The apical portions of the cells of the inner layer stain intensely acidophilic due to the concentration of filaments in these regions. Myoepithelial cells and intercellular canaliculi are absent in the ducts. The sweat glands are innervated by the cholinergic sympathetic nerve fibers. Their secretion is produced in response to heat and nervous strain. Sweat is a clear fluid derived from a network of blood capillaries that intimately develop the secretory portions of sweat. I have already talked about the apocrine sweat glands. I have told you that apocrine type of sweat glands are present in the external auditory canal, which are known as the ceruminous glands. These are actually the modified sweat glands which produce a thick golden colored secretion which is known as the cerumen, which when combined with the desquamated cells and the dust particles gives rise to the wax in the air. Here in the sweat glands we have got the apocrine type of sweat glands which are present in the axilla, in the perineum and armpits, groin, nipples. They secrete a viscous cloudy secretion. And apocrine sweat glands are also under the influence of they are activated at the time of puberty because they are under the influence of these sex hormones. So they gives rise to a secretion which always begins at puberty, and it is stimulated during the emotional distress. And these type of sweat glands, they secrete a viscous material, that is viscous sweat. Apocrine sweat glands, the sweat glands of another variety which are the apocrine, are found in the axilla, areola of the breast, labia majora and circumanal region. These glands are much larger in diameter than the ordinary sweat glands, and the duct of each opens into the canal of a hair follicle, just like the sebaceous glands. And the secretory portion lies in the dermis and consists of cuboidal cells containing numerous secretory granules. The myoepithelial cells are associated with the secretory cells. The apocrine sweat glands become functional at puberty. They produce a slightly viscous fluid which is odorless when it is released but quickly acquires a distinctive odor as a result of bacterial decomposition. So these glands are activated at the time of puberty, and they secrete their secretion at the time of some emotional distress. The apocrine sweat glands are innervated by the adrenergic sympathetic nerve fibers. Let's talk about the hair and the hair follicle. Hairs are elastic keratinized threads derived from an invagination of the epidermis. They are found over the entire skin except for the palms and soles and dorsal surface of the distal phalanx. Each hair consists of two portions. There is a shaft and there is a root. The shaft projects above the skin surface. ये जो बाल हमारे हैं जिनको हम पकड़ के हाथ में ऊपर उठा सकते हैं, इनको shafts कहते हैं. और इसका जो portion skin के अंदर which dips down into the skin, that is in the dermis, and which is surrounded by a tubular sheath that is known as the hair follicle. While the root is embedded in the skin, surrounding the hair root is a tubular hair follicle which consists of epidermal and dermal, that is epithelial and the connective tissue elements. At its deep end, the hair follicle is expanded into a bulbous portion which is known as the hair bulb. Here the hair root and its epithelial sheath blends in a mass of cells called matrix. This is the matrix. There is an indentation at the basal end of the hair bulb which is occupied by a connective tissue papilla. This is connective tissue papilla. Associated with each hair follicle are one or more sebaceous glands and a bundle of smooth muscle fibers constituting the erector muscle of the hair called erector pili. If we talk about the structure of the hair, you can see that structure of the hair consists of, when we see in the cross section, hair consists of epithelial cells arranged in three concentric regions: the medulla, cortex and cuticle. The innermost is the medulla, this is the cortex, and this is the cuticle. The medulla forms the central axis of the hair and consists of two or more layers of shrunken, moderately keratinized cuboidal cells. The intercellular spaces usually contain air. Medulla is absent in fine hair and in blonde hair. The cortex forms the main bulk of the hair. It is composed of long, flattened, fusiform, heavily keratinized cells which are very closely packed. In dark hair, the cells contain granules of melanin pigment. Between the cells, small air-filled spaces occur. If we talk about the cuticle, the outermost layer of the hair consists of a single layer of flattened, clear, keratinized cells which partially overlap each other. The cells are non-nucleated except for those which are present in the lower part of the root. Hair grows at an average rate of 2 mm per week. After a definite period of growth, the hair ceases to grow and then is lost and replaced. The hair color depends on the quantity of melanin pigment and amount of air in the hair substance. Pigment is produced by the melanocytes, as we have talked, and the melanocytes which are present in the stratum malpighi, and they are dendritic cells. They produce melanin granules which are then transferred by those dendritic processes to the keratinocytes, and these are located between the hair papilla and epithelial cells of the hair root hair. Hair follicle, if we talk about the hair follicle, hair follicle surrounds the root of the hair. It is composed of the following two major coats: epithelial root sheath, derived from the epidermis, immediately surrounds the hair root lying next to the hair cuticle. And number two layer is the connective tissue root sheath. Actually, I have told you that this is actually invagination, dipping down of the epidermis into the dermis, dragging along with the epidermis, the dermis, both the connective tissue and the epithelium. It dips down, surrounding in the form of a tubular sheath surrounding the hair root, and we call it hair follicle. If we talk about the epithelial root sheath, this sheath is further composed of two coats, that is inner epithelial root sheath and the outer epithelial root sheath. The inner epithelial root sheath, this sheath represents the superficial layers of the epidermis. It does not extend above the point of entry of the duct of the sebaceous gland into the follicle. From within outwards, this sheath consists of the following three layers: cuticle, Huxley's layer and the Henle's layer. The cuticle of the inner epithelial root lies against the cuticle of the hair. It also consists of a single layer of clear, flat, horny cells. Huxley's layer consists of the several rows of polyhedral cells whose cytoplasm contains trichohyline granules and bundles of tonofibrils. The Henle's layer consists of a single row of low columnar cells. The outer epithelial root sheath, actually this represents it corresponds to the Malpighian layer of the epidermis, that is the two layers of the epidermis, the basal layer and the stratum spinosum. It is seen to consist of several layers of irregularly polygonal cells with processes representing the stratum spinosum, surrounded by a single layer of low columnar cells corresponding to the stratum basale. If we talk about the connective tissue root sheath, This sheath, also called dermal root sheath, lies outer to the epithelial root sheath. The connective tissue sheath disappears at the level where the erector pili muscle is attached. This sheath is composed of three concentric layers from within outwards. These layers are the vitreous layer, middle layer and the outer layer. Vitreous layer, also called the glassy membrane, is a thin band corresponding to the basal lamina of the epidermis. It is composed of an amorphous ground substance in which are embedded fine reticular fibers, but under light microscope it gives a glassy appearance. The middle layer consists of the circularly arranged collagenous fibers with some elastic fibers. It represents the papillary layer of the dermis. You know the dermis has got the papillary layer and the reticular layer. So in the hair follicle, the middle layer is corresponding with the papillary layer of the dermis, and outer layer, actually this is the reticular layer, that is broader and thicker layer of the dermis. It consists of the connective tissue and fibers running longitudinally in it. These are the collagen fibers. There are coarse bundles. This layer corresponds to the reticular layer of the dermis. Let's talk about the nails. Nails are the scale-like modifications of the epidermis, heavily keratinized. These are horny plates covering the dorsal surface of the terminal phalanx of the fingers and the toes. The nail plate consists of intimately fused, highly keratinized cells. They contain degenerated and shrunken nuclei. This plate has three parts. There is a body, the uncovered and visible part. You can see in this diagram, the body is the uncovered and visible part which rests over the nail bed. Then free edge projecting beyond the skin distally, जो आप बहुत लंबे लंबे कर लेते हैं कभी कभी, ख़ास तौर पर लड़कियाँ, और बड़ा हथियार है उनका ये. And then we have got the root, the proximal part of the nail that lies beneath a skin fold. The body of the nail is translucent and appears pink because it transmits the color of blood present in the underlying vascular tissue. The crescent-shaped whitish area on the proximal part of the nail body is known as lunula. This is lunula, you can see. This word is coming from the lunar, crescent-like, because ये हलाल ईद की तरह का होता है. You can see your nails and you can appreciate the lunula. It is a reflection of the partially keratinized cells in the region of the nail. The fold of the skin present around the proximal and lateral borders of the nail is known as nail folds. The furrow between the nail fold and the nail bed is called the nail groove. So this is the nail groove. The epidermis of the nail bed consists only of the stratum basale and stratum spinosum. The dermis of the nail bed does not bear typical papillae, but instead shows longitudinal ridges. The epidermis of the nail bed is very thick proximally, and here it is known as matrix of the nail. Epidermis of the nail bed is continuous distally with epidermis of the fingertip under the free edge of the nail. Finally, let's talk about the color of the skin. The final color of the skin is determined by four pigments which are present at various levels and places in the skin. These pigments are: number 1, the brownish black melanin pigment, which is present in nearly all the layers of the epidermis. Number 2, carotene, a yellowish pigment present in the stratum corneum and the adipose cells of the dermis and superficial fascia. Number 3 is the hemoglobin, which is purple in color, and oxyhemoglobin number 4, which is red in color, which are contained in the blood circulating in the vascular plexuses of the skin. So all these four colors, they ultimately determine the final coloration of the person. So there are different types of colors of the skin. गोरे हैं, काले हैं, پیلے ہیں، نیلے ہیں، طرح طرح کے لوگ ہیں. اللہ تعالیٰ نے رنگ برنگے لوگ بنائے ہیں، لیکن ساتھ ہی اللہ کے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے فرمایا کہ گورے کو کالے پر اور کالے کو گورے پر کوئی فضیلت حاصل نہیں ہے. عند اللہ اتقاکم، ان اکرمکم عند اللہ اتقاکم. اور آپ نے دیکھا ہے آج کل امریکہ میں ایک بہت فساد برپا ہوا ہے. کسی کالے کو مارا گیا ہے، پولیس نے اس کالے کو مارا، اور اس کے نتیجے میں اس وقت پورا امریکہ چل رہا ہے. امریکہ کی سٹیٹس جو ہیں ان میں کرفیو لگا ہوا ہے اور ہنگامے پھوٹ پڑے ہیں اور طرح طرح کی مصیبتیں آ گئی ہیں. اب آپ سوچو، ہمارے نبی حضرت محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے آخری خطبہ میں یہ ارشاد فرمایا، اور یہ کتنا زبردست چارٹر ہے ہیومن. دیر از نو ریسزم. سو دی پروفٹ Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us a very big charter